after a short technical delay. The bye week call-in show starts now. And welcome to the Pewtercast. This is the bi-week live call-in show. Guys, thank you so much for joining us here for this very special episode of the Pewtercast. This will be unlike any other episode that we have had here so far, and I am so excited. I've been sweating out about the last 45 minutes of the show here. Because we've had some technical difficulties, we've had some computer difficulties, but hey, listen, it's all back up and running right now, and I am all set to take your phone calls. Phone lines aren't open yet, don't call just yet, but I am all set to be able to take your phone calls, and for the next hour, hour and a half, 2 hours, however long this takes, we are going to be able to sit back and talk all things Bucks. You guys are going to be the ones to dictate the show, and that's what's going to be. That's how this show's going to go, because you guys are the ones who are going to dictate what we talk about. You guys are going to call in. We're going to talk about the topics you want to talk about. I've got some stuff that I'd like to talk about as well, but I'm going to follow with you guys. So if you've got questions that you want to shoot over to me and you kind of want my take on, or you're just curious about how things work at the Pewtercast, then you can call in. You can ask us those questions. If you've got something you want to talk about, you got something you want to get off your chest, we have a segment we do not infrequently on our show called Fan to Fan or Fan to Fan Live. Think of this like the ultimate version of Fan to Fan Live, which is where, it's kind of like we're just hanging out on the front porch, or we're sitting at a bar, we're cracking open a brew, and we're just talking about our favorite team. Just kind of having a heart-to-heart, a fan-to-fan type discussion. So guys, this is going to be your show, Pewtercast fans. And here's how this is going to work. One, we are up live right now in the Mixlr chat. We normally don't go live for the Pewtercast. The Pewtercast is, we normally record at whatever time. I can make it work with whoever my guest is. Usually it's a little bit later at night. And then once we record, then I go back in and I add in all the music and the audio clips and things like that. And it's a produced thing. And then I put it out and you guys get to listen to it on the backside. Not today, guys. Any mistakes that you've heard, you might have heard one just a few minutes ago. The fact that we were just a few minutes late getting this thing started, all just goes to show, guys, this is live. And when this goes out on the podcast, I'm not editing this out. This is exactly how it's going to work. So listen, that's what's going on. So you can join us, mixler.com/thepewtercast. I do not know if we're going to continue to do live broadcasts of the show. The show was never designed to be a live show. That's not saying it can't morph into that, but it was not designed to be that. So, but anyway, for today, you can join us, mixler.com. That's mixlr.com/thepewtercast. And you can listen to us live right now. Log into the chat room. You can just listen, or you can log in and join us in the chat room. We've got some people in there right now. They're having a fantastic conversation, and I'm going to do my best to focus on those of you who are listening and kind of keep an eye on the chat room so I can interact with them as well. A couple of ways that you can interact with us. One, earlier this week, we opened up the email to anyone who wanted to be a part of the show tonight, but for whatever reason couldn't make it. And we allowed them to kind of take a voice memo, and then they could email it to us. So I had a couple of people do that. That will be we'll be reading those. I had one email came through, just a written email, which we'll probably go ahead and we'll read that one as well. And so we'll have those, and we'll get to talk about whatever it is that they talk about. I've not actually listened to them yet. Second, if you actually want to call into the show, you can do that. Don't do it right now. Phone lines aren't open. But that number is going to be 843-633-BUCKS. That's 843-633-2827. You can call into the phone, and we'll talk to you. Now, listen, the phone line could be busy when you call in, because here's the deal. I only have one phone line, and I don't have a phone screener. So when you call in, if it's busy, if I'm already talking to somebody else, then just hang up, listen to us in Mixer, and when the phone line sounds clear, go ahead and give us a call back. I'm going to stay online as long as you guys are talking to me. I'll be here for at least an hour tonight, and if you guys are still talking past an hour, then I'm going to stay with you. One thing that one thing. Oh, I already talked about that. Okay. Yeah. And, hey, who knows? Maybe next time we do this, we'll actually have multiple lines going. But for right now, being an independent guy who's self-funding, these are the limits of my technology, but maybe we'll get to that spot. A couple rules for tonight. For those of you who are listening, I might have to, reiterate these throughout the night as new people come in and out of the show. Rule number 1 is don't be a jerk face. We all love the Bucks fans, and there's no reason to get nasty. Just don't, as old school would put it for his tailgates, don't come in and be a douche. So yeah, we'll do that. The next one, coming off of that lovely phrase, is keep it PG-13, guys. This is a PG-13 show. We're not R-rated. This is not Bucks Uncensored. Okay. But this is also not a Disney movie either. Okay. Like we are all adults here. But I want, if somebody's driving down the road and they've got their kids in the car, I got my kids in the car. Maybe I'm listening back for whatever reason, because I like the sound of my own voice. No, not really. But, I don't want anybody to have to freak out, have an explicit lyrics thing. So keep it PG-13. And the other thing is I'm going to ask you to do what I almost never do, which is be concise. All right, let's get to it and get what you want to talk about. And let's have a conversation about it. So, guys, what do you want to talk about? What is it? Is it maybe Vincent Jackson going on IR? Is it maybe Doug Martin, who they said had a setback? Is it Jacquizz and how he's doing for Doug Martin? You want to talk about next year's draft? You want to talk about the 49ers game coming up? You've still got some stuff left over from the Carolina game, maybe the Arizona game, maybe the Rams game. Maybe you want to go back and talk about even that opening Atlanta game. Maybe you want to talk about Lovie Smith. You're still miffed, or you love the fact that Lovie Smith is no longer with us. Whatever it is, as long as it's Bucks related, you want to talk about it, it is up to you. So, guys, I am going... How come somebody says in the chat room, how come Justin P., I'm going to say that's Justin Pulowski for Bucks Uncensored, never acknowledges other podcasts? I don't know. There seems to be this weird unwritten rule in the podcasting world that you pretend like you're the only one out there. And I think that's stupid. I have made it a point to not be like that. And I like talking about, I give a nod to just about everybody, but I will say this. He may never talk about anybody else, and he may never talk about me, and that's okay. But I am loving the switch that he has made since, I don't even remember what the original name of that podcast was, but since he's moved to Bucks Uncensored, I love, there's something that is different about how he's handling the show now, and I think it just has to do with where he is. And I'm loving it. I don't agree with everything he says, and that's okay, but I'm loving where he's coming from on a lot of his issues over there. So that's at least me. Somebody goes low or doesn't go at all, I'm still going to go high. So, I love all Tampa Bay Buccaneers podcast. I don't want to say love. I like them, and I think you should be listening to them all. So welcome in Bucks and Barbecue to the chat room. Welcome to have you guys. All right, guys. You guys want to get to this? Let's open up the phone lines. Let's see who gets to call in first. The number 843-633-BUCKS. That's 843-633-2827. Let's see who calls us in first to talk about some stuff. Well, we're waiting on that. I think the big news coming out of today is really Doug Martin. Doug Martin, Coach, I think it was Coach Cutter, maybe Monken, I don't know, one of those two, came out and said that Doug Martin had a setback back on Sunday, and his timetable for return is unknown. I don't know. We'll talk about this while we're waiting on somebody to call in. Phone lines are open now, guys. Phone lines are open for anyone who wants to call in. But Doug Martin, this could be one of two things. These guys like to play their little games and not let people know who's playing or who's not playing, and kind of veil the mystery of who's hurt and just how bad they're really hurt, or maybe how bad they're not really hurt. And so this could be the Bucks just kind of playing that game, so that nobody can do that. But hey, we got somebody calling in. Let's go ahead and take this call, see who's with us. You are on the line. Who am I talking with today?
This is David in Oregon.
David in Oregon. Welcome, David, man. You called me a little bit last night. You helped me test in some of this equipment. Thanks for calling in, man. What you want to talk about?
Well, I just want to know, do you know what the status of Rodgers' contract is as of now?
Rodgers, in what way? What do you mean when you're asking about the status of his contract?
Well, I mean, is it for a year? I can't remember if it's for a year or just a couple of weeks and they were going to reevaluate. I can't remember.
He is signed. he is here at least for this year. I don't know if he got a multi-year deal or not, but he is here for the remainder of the year. Now they could certainly waive him at any point, but depending on how all of those contracts work out. I do believe that Jacquizz Rodgers is a veteran. He's past his initial rookie year contract. So, I'm not really sure. I don't keep tabs on that. If Greg Allman was here, he would know that for sure. But I don't know. But Jacquizz is, he's huge. I would be shocked if it was anything. If it was anything weird. Let's hear it. Rendax in the chat room tells us it's 1 year for $760,000. Man, glad he's making a little bit of money. So so he's here for at least the 1 year. You could certainly imagine that he's here a little bit on a prove it contract to see if we're going to use him. When we brought him in, Doug Martin had just gotten injured. We didn't know how long that was going to be for. And Mike James, our number 3 back, has gone out. I feel like he was really brought in to replace Mike James, not to replace Doug Martin or Charles Sims. Mike James was a great number 3 back, and he was a better backup for Doug Martin, I think, than Charles Sims ever was. I remember saying that during the preseason. So yeah, man, what are your thoughts on Jacquizz? How have you liked seeing him so far?
Well, I'm biased. I watched him here locally in college, and he doesn't really have a significant, in the NFL, his short time, he's had some injuries. But, going back to his high school days in Texas and then here in Corvallis for OSU and then Chicago and Atlanta, Chicago, and now ultimately Tampa Bay, I think if he has a few more games with the Carolina game, he's worth keeping on the roster. He can catch the ball, too. He's not just a runner. And he's not afraid of contact. I think he's somebody that Tampa Bay needs to look at if he has a few more games like Carolina on a long-term basis.
Yeah, and he's only going to have a few more games like Carolina if they keep feeding him the ball, But and if he they will continue to feed him the ball if he continues to perform the way he performed. Cutter was saying on the radio show that they do on Monday nights. Apparently, there's another one of the coaches. Who his job, it's not Cutter's job, it's the other's coach job to watch the running backs and to cycle them out as one's getting tired. And what they had noted was, especially in that opening drive, they kept looking at him and just going, he's not tired. Well, let's leave him in. Is he tired now? No, he's not tired. Let's just keep leaving him in. I guess that's a little bit of how they determine whether or not to cycle people in and out. And he was just beating it up, and he wasn't growing faint, so to speak. And as long as that's who he is and he continues to do that, they will continue to feed him the ball. And if they continue to feed him the ball and he gets those kinds of yards, then he's going to be on this team. And I'd be tickled to death. Let's just say that next year Doug Martin and Charles Sims come back and they get that number 1 and number 2 spot again, which would not be unreasonable to have him there as number 3. Nothing against Peyton Barber or Russell Hansborough or any of those guys, but I would be tickled to death to have those 3 as our running back core for the team on the active roster. So,
I agree. Yeah. May I ask another question?
Yeah, you sure can. Go ahead, man.
What would you do if you're the GM right now? Would you use one of our upper picks to trade for a receiver on somebody who's not contending this year, or would you stick with free agency and see how in-house works?
For a receiver or for running back?
Yes, for receiver.
For the receiver, because you're now obviously referencing the fact that Vincent Jackson's now on IR. We've certainly got Mike Evans, who, it's much easier to game plan for Mike Evans without Vincent Jackson on the field if you're other teams. And so now we have Adam Humphries. We've got Dante Dye, who's back, signed on the active roster, which made me super happy. We've got Cecil Shorts, which I don't know what his full status is just yet. And then we say Lewis Murphy, he's back. And but Lewis Murphy won't be back for a little bit. So your question is, do we take one of our early draft picks and trade it for a receiver, or see how the receiving core works out right now? If there's somebody available that you want to go after, that you feel like you could get, I would use next year's draft pick on a really good receiver right now. I would have no problem doing that if you think you could get them, you know? I would not use an early round draft pick to go get somebody who is further along in their career. I wouldn't do that, but somebody who can come in and be a compliment for years to come. Yeah, sure. I'd go ahead and use a draft pick. I might even use, would I use two? I might use an early draft pick and a really late round draft pick for something like that, as opposed to waiting till next year's draft. But that's only if I thought I could get them, and that said, I don't know who I would go after because there's so many great receivers out there. But I'm not sure who I'd go after, but yeah, I would do that if the opportunity presented itself. I'm okay sitting in, especially if we get Lewis Murphy back sooner rather than later. I'm okay rolling with Evans and Lewis Murphy for now. So sound good, man?
Yeah, absolutely, man. Thank you.
All right. Hey, listen, if we have a big lull back in the show, you call back in. Let's have another chat. But for right now, we'll end this and open up the phone line for someone else. Thanks so much, Dave, for calling in. Phone line is open, 843-633-2827. That's 843-633-BUCKS calling in. Just before that phone call, I was talking about Doug Martin and the news coming out that he's had a setback in his recovery, and just kind of positing maybe they're just kind of playing a game. Maybe coaches are just playing a game, or maybe they're really telling us, hey, no, he's seriously injured. These hamstring injuries can be pretty sinister, pretty insidious. So, man, I don't know. It sucks not getting Doug Martin back, especially since we were so excited. I think we were all excited to get Doug back. Cause let's face it, Jacquizz Rodgers, listen, as good of a game as he had against Carolina, and I loved seeing him in Carolina. I mean, he got the game ball. He absolutely should have gotten the game ball. If he continues to run like that, he should get a game ball every single game. But Jacquizz Rodgers is no Doug Martin. Jacquizz touched the ball for 30 times over the course of the game, but yet he only got 101 yards. I would dare say if Doug Martin, when he's fully healthy, touches the ball 30 times, he's breaking off 150, maybe tapping on the door of 200, maybe 175, 180. So Doug Martin is going to get those bigger plays. Doug Martin is still, I think, a better back than Jacquizz Rodgers, but Jacquizz is a very healthy, very, very healthy number 3, and a great. He's a great backup for when somebody gets hurt. So. That's my thought on Jacquizz and Doug Martin. Vincent Jackson going to IR. Let's talk about that while we wait on our next phone call to come in. Guys, open lines, 843-633-2827. You guys get to pick what we talk about, and until you call in, I'm just going to talk about whatever I want to talk about. Vincent Jackson going to IR. Man, I hated to see that. I really hated to see that. Somebody in the chat room is asking Josh Gordon for a 2nd and a 6th round pick. Ooh, I don't know. I'm glad I'm not the GM of this of any team, really, be honest with you. But Vincent Jackson went to IR. Here's the thing. I think we all have suspected, really from last year and definitely into this year, that Vincent Jackson was in his last year. This is the last year of his contract coming in, so it's not surprising he would ride out his contract, but certainly we hate to see him go out. A guy who I think we all love Vincent Jackson. Like, we truly love him as a man. We love him for what he does, for our team, and Vincent Jackson he's just a good guy. He's just a good guy, and he's a great player. Although this year he has not been on point. But he makes a difference when he's on the field. That's the thing. Like, I keep going back, but nobody wants to see a person go out on their career on IR. And I suspect, this is just my suspicion, if he's out on IR, he will be out for the entire year. They have floated some thought that he may actually be back this year, which would be awesome if he could do that. But let's just assume that he's out on IR for the year, because that's usually what happens when you hit the IR list. The fact that he goes out and he's probably not coming back next year, probably not to the Bucs, probably not anywhere else. This is probably the end of his career, which, man, I just hate to see that go out. I hate that for him, to see that go out. So yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, guys. We had Aaron Rutherford, who had sent in an email earlier this week. So let's take a moment and listen. We'll get this pulled up, and we can listen to what Aaron had said. While that is loading for us, let's see here. Here we go.
Hey, Brent. This is Aaron Rutherford, all the way from North Dakota. Diehard Bucks fan ever since the Gruden year of 2002. I just want to say, great podcast. Love the content. Love the material. Keep up the great work. Look forward to more future episodes. I just want to say that this team it looked probably the most resilient I've ever seen it play on Monday Night Football, and I want to see more of the competitiveness that we saw in that game that has been lacking for the last 3 weeks ever since the Atlanta game. I know that this team is not at full strength, but you cannot make that excuse. I mean, look at the Vikings. They are making that excuse. Neither should we. And offense needs to find some consistency. Jameis Winston needs, and my God, does he ever need to be accurate with that football. He needs to stop overthrowing, underthrowing. He needs to develop a rapport with his with the receivers other than Mike Evans and Adam Humphries. Vincent Jackson, I mean, I realize he has looked like he's been invisible most games, but Jameis Winston has been overthrowing him consistently, and that's got to improve in order for this team to succeed. The defense probably played the best it's played all season on Monday Night Football. I was unbelievably proud of those guys. They stepped up in a big way, especially when that defensive line was so injury depleted. Those rookies, they stepped up in a huge way. I am very proud of them. Jacquizz Rodgers, I said for 2 weeks that they needed to put him as a starting tailback and replace Charles Sims. Charles Sims is not an every down running back. As
I think we all said that.
From Bucks Uncensored says he is a wide receiver disguised as a running back. That's his best. That's his bread and butter, is catching out of the backfield. And for everybody that keeps saying Dirk needs to stop, or not stop, but Dirk needs to not do this, not do that, not do this, not do that. The guy is in his rookie year as a coach. He's gonna make mistakes. People are making him sound like he's a seasoned veteran, like he's been coaching the NFL for 10 years. He's been coaching 6 games. Give the man time. Seriously. I mean, my God. It infuriates me when I see people on Twitter just bashing him, and then I hear the fire cutter chants. I mean, seriously, those people probably thought that this team was going to go to this.
Okay, I got to stop it there. There are fire cutter chants going on out there? Really? I've not seen these. I have not seen these. And if you're shouting fire cutter, you are dumb. I'm just going to tell you guys right now, and I make no apologies. If you're listening to this and you're hearing my voice and you have said, hey, we got to get rid of Dirk Cutter, I need you to go be a fan somewhere else. Because getting rid of coaches like this is exactly the problem with what is going on with Tampa Bay Buccaneers. We cannot change head coaches more than we change our underwear. Absolutely cannot change. You guys out there. Now, I'll tell you what, I have seen and I have heard people talking about firing Mike Smith, a guy who's come into a team for his first year as a defensive coordinator after the shit show that was the Lovie Smith era on defense, when that was supposed to be his specialty. You know, he tried to come in and mold everybody into this very specific Tampa 2 team, and if you didn't fit that scheme, then you had to go. And here Mike Smith is coming in saying, no, stop. We're going to look at who we have and try to fit things around them. And he's trying to reestablish some stuff. And people are talking about, oh, well, his defense isn't working. Are you kidding me? Are you can't judge that after 4 games or 5 games. That's crazy. And oh, by the way, defense that was depleted as it was stepped up big time on Monday, and we should all be proud of that. Now, granted, it was against a very beat-up Cam Newton-less Carolina team, but still, they stepped up big time to do that. All right, he's got about 30 seconds left. Let's see what else Aaron has to say.
Super Bowl this year. If they seriously thought that, they seriously need to check their
He's still talking about people saying Cutter should get fired.
This team is nowhere near Super Bowl contending. It's barely possibly playoff contending right now. We need to focus on winning the division possibly, or getting a wild card. We're nowhere near ready for Super Bowl. But yeah, just wanted to leave a quick voice memo and say good job, Brent, again. Keep up the great work, and have a good one. Bye.
All right. Thanks, Aaron, so much for leaving that voicemail, man. I really appreciate it. And you know what? I want to bounce off of what he was just talking there at the end. If anybody wants to call in, open phone lines, 843-633-BUCKS. That's 843-633-2827. Call in right now. You decide what we're going to talk about. Until then, I'm going to talk about playoffs or Super Bowl. What do you guys think? Playoffs or Super Bowl for the Bucks? Can I go ahead and say and throw this out there? It is possible. It is possible, although highly not likely, but it is possible the Bucks could wind up. And think about what kind of a Cinderella story this would be. The Bucks could wind up in the Super Bowl this year. Think about how amazing that would be, especially after this kind of rocky-ish start that we've had. Because it is, guys, here's the deal. It is not inconceivable that we could win our division. Not after beating Carolina and Atlanta. Atlanta last year started off really great and then tanked the rest of the season. Well, they have started off their year relatively pretty good. They're 4-2 right now. They're not perfect. They're not 5-0. Atlanta started off pretty good. We are, about a game and a half behind them, but we also, over Carolina for sure and over the Saints, we have the division wins. Should it come down to a tiebreaker? It is entirely possible as this year goes on. Tampa Bay continues to win, and you guys, if you've been listening to this at any time at all, I've said we have to look at this in terms of quarters. We went 1-3 in the first quarter, just like we did last year. We're now in the second quarter. If we go 2-2, I wouldn't be happy about it, but I would be satisfied. Okay, and that leaves us coming out of the first half of the year. If we go 2-2 here, that leaves us at 3-5 as a record. And then we go into the third quarter. We win we win 3 of the next 4, and then that's going to bump us up to what's that going to make us? That's going to make us 8-6. Is that right? No, 6-6. That puts us to 500. We'll be at 6-6, and then people are starting to talk about whether or not we're going to playoff contend because we could. What if imagine if we won out 4-0 on the final quarter of the year, like we should have last year, instead of tanking 0-4. And suddenly we end up the year at 10-6. And Atlanta tanks the season. If we win those last 4 games, that means we've beaten the Saints both times, which surely means that we win the division at that point. And all of a sudden, bada bing, bada boom, we are now in the playoffs. That'd be something else. Let's say Atlanta has a great rest of the year, but still at 10-6. Winning the division games we had, that's potential for a playoff for a wild card race in the playoffs, right? And all of a sudden, guys, once you're in the playoffs, the season's back to 0-0. It's 1-0 every single week in the playoffs, and they could get in there and do it. Now, I'm not saying that I think they could, and it'd be a hell of a Cinderella story. And if they did, you guys would look back to me saying it right here, right now. Just because I'm that egotistical. So, but guys, it could. All right. However, I agree with Aaron. We don't need to be worrying about the Super Bowl right now. I don't even necessarily think we should be worrying about the playoffs right now. I think we need to be worrying about just this quarter of the season that we're in right now. We're 1-0. We've won 1 game. We've got 3 more to go. We're about to go out to San Francisco, where we faced Chip Kelly's offense. We're going to face Chip Kelly. And you guys remember the team that Chip Kelly coached last year was the Philadelphia Eagles. and we killed them last year, utterly killed them. So, I would love to simplistically be able to say that all Dirk Cutter has to do is repeat whatever we did last year against the Eagles, go out there and do that against the 49ers this year. And we could be looking at 2-0 on this particular quarter. 2-0. And then we go in and the Raiders, could be a little bit of a tougher challenge. And then we're back against the Atlanta Falcons for our home game, our home division game. And we could win. They could be on the downslope there. What if we went 4-0 on this particular quarter? That'd be something. What would you guys be saying then? Would you be talking playoffs then? Would you be talking possible Super Bowl? Maybe. But let's focus on this quarter right now. All right, guys, open phone lines. You get to decide what we talk about. You can call in right now. The number is 843-633-2827. That's 843-633-BUCS 2827. You call in. We'll talk about whatever it is you want to talk about. There's somebody right there. Thanks for calling into the PewterCast bi-week live call-in show. Who are we talking to? Hello? Oh, drop the call. Well, hey, listen, you pick up that phone, you get you some signal service back, and give us a call back. We'll talk to you for sure. And in the meantime, for anyone else who wants to call in, 843-633-BUCS. It's 843-633-2827. All right, so what have we talked about? We've talked about Vincent Jackson a little bit tonight. Hey, there we go. Hey, thanks for calling the PewterCast bi-week live call-in show. Who are we talking to?
You're talking to Sonny from California.
Sonny from California. How's it going, Sonny?
I wish things could be better, especially, going with the injuries that our Bucks are going and dealing with. But hopefully our backups can definitely take in and make advantage of it.
That's fantastic. Sonny, got a question for you. I often hear people talking about the Buckaholics group out there in California. Old School talks about it over at What the Buck, and I know they're tweeting off and in on the radio show. Are you a part of that group over there, the Buckaholics out there in California?
I am not. I actually didn't even know there was such a thing.
You should look them up because apparently they're a pretty stellar group. And where are you in Cali?
Southern California, to be exact, city of Covina.
Awesome. I have zero idea of the geography of California except for about where LA is. I think San Diego is a little bit south of that, and San Francisco is a little bit north of that. So, hey, man, what you want to talk about? What you got for us?
Yeah, no, I actually wanted to touch as far as you were talking earlier about the playoffs, us making possible the playoffs. Look, I try to have faith in the team and everything every single season. Hopefully this will be our year. We're going to at least finally get a winning record. We haven't had a winning record now for 6 years. In 2010, we went 10-6.
Right.
So, to me, this is a bit of a must-year type of situation for us as far as I'm concerned. I understand we have Dirk Cutter, a new head coach, coming in after what happened with Lovie Smith last year. But, I think the schedule really, for some reason, to me, is just going to be really tough to see. I'm not trying to downgrade on the faith or anything, but, San Francisco, I won't take anything out on them. But I will say against teams like San Diego, Seattle, and Drew Brees putting up big points, and we have to face him twice this year, not till December, but still, it's going to be pretty tough, to see what this team is going to do, and hopefully they can take advantage and put the backups in.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of people talk about over those last couple of weeks how it feels like the schedule is getting easier from here on out, and I don't necessarily agree with that. I thought Greg Allman put it really good in his podcast, Locked On Bucks podcast. When they grade the strength of schedule of a season, they only can do that based on what a team did last year. So when you look at a game like, you look at the Carolina Panthers, everybody goes, oh, that's going to be such a tough game. They were a Super Bowl team last year. Well, look at what's going on with them this year. And certainly the next time we face the Carolina Panthers, I know you didn't mention them, but I will. They should have Cam Newton back, and they should have some of their other people back just like we will. And so I'll be interested to see what happens with the Panthers game as well, being a division game. But, as you say, the Saints could be coming on strong. They've started slow, in some ways just kind of like the Bucks have, though they've started a little bit slower. But Drew Brees is still a killer. You know, if you remember last year, he shredded. Even though I think we went 1-1, right? We split the games with him last year. He shredded our backfield both times, and I dare say that our secondary is. I think it's improved over last year, but it certainly is not free of its holes. It's certainly not free of its gaps, and I think we still could have a. I think we have a tough road ahead of us as far as the rest of the season. But to your point of all of that, of what is it that the Bucs have to do in terms of a schedule, you know, or in terms of a record coming off of this year, you know, would we really accept a 6-10 win this year, a 6-10 record at the end of this year? Would you really accept an 8-8? What are you thinking? Like, what is I hate to use the word acceptable, but and I'm not even asking you for a prediction of what we will do. Just what do you think we should do?
Right now, I'm looking at least a perfect 500. I'll say that at 8-8, I'll be satisfied with that because, you know, we've come from losing to improving, and hopefully now this season we can at least go 8-8. That's what I'm mostly gunning for. We can go 9-7. Hey, I'll tip it off and I'll still celebrate. But from 2 years ago, McCown at quarterback, if we recall, we only had 2 wins. Then we improved last season with Lovey with 6 wins. So, I mean, I don't see how really, personally, quite frankly, I don't think things can get worse. You know, injuries happen. I understand that. But sometimes teams can also improve while those top guys are on the bench and have an injury, then they can still find a way to win games. I'm looking at least an 8-8. I don't want to be greedy and say 10-6, 11-5, but I'm at least looking at an 8-8.
Yeah, my prediction as I've looked at the games this year has been 10-6. I think that's where we're going to get to. I think a lot of people tend to be right where you are, at which, you know, to say 8-8, and honestly, I get it, because if we go 8-8, we go 500, at least it wasn't a losing season. You know, and that would just feel so good to have not had a losing season. Now, on the flip side of that, it's also not a winning season. So I hear a lot of people kind of hedging their bets a little bit, but tipping it just a little bit and say, well, it'll be 9-7. I tend to go a step beyond that. You know, I don't want to hedge it just that close. But even looking at the schedule, you know, and I've said since the beginning of the season, and I still believe it. And I still believe it with the team we have right now, even with the injuries, that there's not a game on our schedule that we can't win. You know, we can beat the Seattle Seahawks. We can beat the Oakland Raiders. We can sweep the Falcons. We can sweep the Panthers. We can sweep the Saints. We can beat, take any team on our schedule. We can beat them. Now, will we? That's a different question. You know,
I agree.
And so that really becomes the issue. You know, and I don't know if you remember a couple years ago, because I was just talking about the playoff thing and what if we were to win the division. But you remember, what was it, about 3-4 years ago? I think it was Carolina won the division, but nobody in our division had a winning record. They just had the best record of a bunch of losing teams, you know, and still made it into the playoffs. And, you know, hey, however you get there, it could be dirty, but you get into it and you go with it. So, yeah, man, it's a great discussion to say, do we need to go 8-8 at least?
I think that's impossible. I think, you know, at this time, I'm going to accept anything because we have improved, like I said, for the past 2 seasons when we have Lovey, and I think Cutter is going to help us improve as well. And I'm going to be honest, I know it's early and I know the season's not over, but as far as, you know, a lot of people want to talk early about the draft, I want to see when the draft comes what Cutter is going to gun for in that first round. Offense, defense. Right now, I'm either way.
Yeah, it really could be. And make no mistake, and I will say this, I think Jason Light has a lot more control over this team than he ever did under Lovey. You know, Lovey had that final say of the roster and all that, and I think Jason has, and rightly so, kept a lot of these things. Now, he is also very smart. He uses his coach's input. You know, he gets his people together. He asks his coach what weapons his coach needs, and he goes and gets those weapons. And, you know, I was having this conversation with somebody earlier today on Twitter. And you know, what do we do come draft? And I think it's a bit early to start talking about the draft, but, you know, as far as draft needs for next year, to me in my head, as I see the team right now, our biggest needs are going to be safety. and defensive line. And then maybe we start talking about some of our holes on offense. Certainly we could use another receiver. I think at this point, another high caliber receiver. I think we have to start looking at running back at some point. You may even look at another right tackle, or maybe do we bring in another left tackle and see about moving Donovan over to the right side, and pick all that. But ultimately, it's going to be Jason Light who picks these players, but he's going to do it with the input, with major input from Dirk Cutter. And you're right; it'll be interesting to see who they gun for, and a little bit of it's going to be best player available.
No question.
Depending on how that goes and how they rank on their draft board. So, well, Sonny, thanks so much for calling in, man, and feel free to call us back later on in the show, especially if we've got a big gap with what's going on. All right.
Awesome. Thank you so much for
Sonny.
taking the call. Go Bucks.
Yeah, go Bucks, man. Go Bucks. Well, Sonny, thanks so much for calling in, and phone lines are now open. Somebody was trying to call in with Sonny, so if that was you, go ahead and call us back. 843-633-BUCKS. That's 843-633-2827. Is there somebody left a voicemail? Let's try playing it. Let's see who's there. See if anybody actually did that. I've never played a voicemail while we have this. It was just 1 second, so nobody actually left one. That's okay. That's all right. Let's go back. Go backwards. No. Oh, you're over here. All right. Last chance for anyone to call in, 843-633-2827, or I'm going to actually play another voicemail that was left to us on email. 3, 2, 1. All right, let's go with that, and we'll take a phone call here in just a 1
Hey,
moment.
Brent, this is Mark from Illinois. I am Bucks and Barbecue on Twitter. I love your show. I've been listening to you since the beginning. I love how you talk about the Bucks culture and how it needs to change.
Hey, let's we'll pause Mark over there, and we'll come in. We'll take this. Hey, thanks for calling into the Pewtercast Bi-Week Live show. Who are we talking to?
This is Ren.
Ren, what's going on, Ren? Ren, is this the Ren Daxt? Daxt. Ren Daxt, man, you are all over the place, man. It is so good to finally get to talk to you. What's going on in your brain today?
Well, I had a couple of hot takes. I started out at the beginning of the season, well, actually after the first game, the Atlanta game.
Yeah.
And I just want to know, where you felt as far as what I was thinking. The first one, I had three. The first one I just want to take off the table altogether because it was Vincent Jackson would lose his starting job as wide receiver.
Yeah.
Since he got hurt, that's not what I meant. So I'm just going to pull that one off. But what do you think about the chances of Ali Marpet making the Pro Bowl?
Wow. Well, I'll tell you what, let me go back to the Vincent Jackson one and let's just pretend that Vincent Jackson didn't go on IR. And if things continued the way they were going, I do not believe that Vincent Jackson would have lost his starting job. One, because of the captaincy that he held on the team. I don't think you can underestimate, and I think Cutter understands culture and leadership enough to know you cannot underestimate the value of a leader on a team and what he does. And even if Vincent Jackson is not as sharp as he had been, he still made a difference being on the field. And historically and statistically, you look at a guy like Tony Gonzalez, in his last year of playing for the Falcons, he may not have been as super sharp as he once was, but he was still a person that other teams had to game plan for. And Vincent Jackson is that guy for us. People have to take him into account. Without him on the field, I don't know that you're going to see Mike Evans get double teamed as much, but they're going to focus on Mike a lot more than they are Adam Humphries. And I love Adam Humphries. I don't know much about Cecil Shorts. I can't say much about him, but let's just face it, there is a stark difference between Adam Humphries and Mike Evans, probably namely in about 6 inches as well. So no, I don't think Vincent Jackson would have lost that starting job, mostly because I don't think there's anyone else behind him that could have taken it, even with Vincent Jackson being in a down year, especially given the fact that he was a captaincy. Now, you asked me about Ali Marpet making the Pro Bowl. I think it's very possible. It's very possible. We know Ali in Tampa as Tampa fans. I don't have a sense that other people know Ali Marpet. Not yet. And it would be great if he could. I think he is Pro Bowl what's the word? Pro Bowl
caliber.
Yeah, thank you. I think he's absolute Pro Bowl caliber. I just don't know that he has that recognition around the league yet, especially just being in his second year. Being on offensive line, that's a hard, especially as a guard. I think, you get a little bit more talked about you if you're a tackle or even a center. But being a guard, it's an interesting thing. So I think he's there. I think he could do it. I have no idea what, his Pro Bowl is picked by other players, right? And some by fans. And I just don't think he has the notoriety to get the votes to do it yet. I don't know. Let me rephrase that. I don't know that he has the notoriety. I'm not saying he doesn't. I just don't know that he does. So, but I would vote for him.
Yeah, I agree with that. Especially, like you said, like the guard, the tackles tend to be more of the rock star position. The center's kind of like the captain of the line,
right,
makes all the calls. And since you can't really project stats as far as like offensive line goes, there's no fantasy football set for offensive line.
Right.
It's hard for like, the average fan to find out who like a guard is. It's almost like a position that's kind of, once you get in, you're there until you retire.
Right.
Or maybe you get hurt a year.
Right. And I mean, and to that fact, I couldn't tell you who a guard is on another team.
So,
I mean, and I follow the league pretty closely. I really couldn't
tell you another Pro Bowl guard is.
Right.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just making that point.
Well, anyway.
Yeah. You had another thought?
Yeah. Well, my last hot take, and this is something, of course, that I don't hope that happens, but I kind of see it on the horizon. I think that Buck fans, the uninformed Buck fans, obviously the ones who don't listen to your show, here are going to want, you like that? At the end of the year, are going to want Donovan Smith replaced at left tackle.
Yeah. What are my thoughts on that?
Yeah.
I hate that. I hate that. And I won't say that they're as big of idiots as the people who might be saying fire Cutter or even fire Mike Smith. But I think that would be a bad call, because still, when you look at Donovan Smith, the left tackle is potentially the hardest. It is definitely the hardest and one of the most important offensive line roles, probably one of the hardest positions on the entire team. And when you don't do your job, when you screw up, you get called out. And when you do your job, you get almost zero recognition. That said, let's remember who Donovan Smith is. He is still a second-year player, right? He's like...
Correct.
I mean, he's still a second-year player. Like, it'd be like trying to cut Mike Evans off at the knees in his second year and saying, oh, well, he's a complete bust. Well, look at him this year. He's not a bust. No,
he's had 2 good years. He
right.
just, everyone complained about his drops and a little bit about his attitude.
Sure. And, so let's apply that to Donovan Smith. This is his second year. And yeah, you know what? I've seen, here's the thing. You've got to be careful about watching things on Twitter that say Donovan Smith is the guy who allows he's the worst in the league of left tackles for allowing pressures on the quarterback, which that may be a statistic that is
right.
true. Okay. That might be a statistic that is true. You've got to be careful when listening to statistics, because you can take any statistic and make it sound like anything. You can find a statistic to make anybody sound like a rock star, or to make them sound like a complete jackhole who should only be playing at the JV level and high school, and Donovan's, I think our offensive line is not as dominant as it was last year. I still think they're pretty good this year. Though I would like to see them defend the pass a little bit, give Jameis a little bit more time. But you got to look at that and you got to go, okay, we've got Donovan Smith, Ali Marpet, both in their second year. We've got Kevin Pamphile, who's been around for a couple years, but he's in his very first year as a starter, playing as much as he's playing. And by the way, Cutter just said that Kevin Pamphile has graded out as the best offensive lineman at this midpoint of the year, so to speak, on the bye week. He's graded out as the best offensive lineman we have. Right. And then you've got DeMar Dotson, who just got his brand new contract, and he's certainly he is the elder statesman on our team. He's the guy who's been around the longest, which is crazy to think, but that's true. And is he really that much better than Gosder Sherrillis? Considering the way we played last year, I might I don't know. But certainly you
Six
would,
penalties for Doc so far.
yeah, but even that, Donovan and Ali, I love, by the way, I'm just going to say this. The Donovan Smith and Ali Marpet radio show on Tuesday nights with Casey Phillips is the best of all the Tampa Bay Buccaneer player shows that happen on a weekly basis. It is hilarious to
Hands
listen
down.
to those two.
Hands
and
down.
and nothing against TJ Reeves, but Casey Phillips is fantastic with those two as the host of that show, and I would like to hear her on more of those shows. All of that said, I think it was Donovan who was saying one night, or maybe it was Ali who was saying on the show one night that, sometimes you have to make a decision in the moment. Do I take a penalty or do I allow them to get to my quarterback and sack him? I can stop this guy if I hold him, or do I let him go and let him get to the quarterback? Well, you either get the yards and he hits your quarterback, or you get the yards and he doesn't hit the quarterback. Well, you take the penalty every time when that's the case. So, I think there's some times when Donovan has had to make that call, but at the same time, as you say, he's had some penalties this year, so is he any better or worse than Gosder Sherless? Let's not forget, Gosder Sherless had a false start penalty on us at the most inopportune time in the game on Monday night. So, offensive linemen are not free from those mistakes, but,
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I started out the whole hot take about, I don't think it happens. And, you're right. The only time, everybody knows this, the only time you hear the offensive lineman's name is, when he gets called for a penalty.
Right.
Plus, like you said, he's playing left tackle. You have to be the most athletic guy on the line. And, he wasn't even a senior. He came out his junior year,
right,
and he's barely got 20 games under his belt.
Right.
So, yeah, I was just wondering, obviously you saw the same Twitter feed that I did about him giving up the most pressures from, Pro Football Scout.com, Sisters, Mary, Mothers, whatever it was.
Sure.
And it was just a feeling that I was getting, because I also see a lot of quote-unquote experts say that his best position should be at guard.
They can talk about that. One thing that Coach Warhop, the offensive line coach, does is he's pretty noted for cross-training all the players across the entire line. And so if Donovan Smith is better in at a guard and we can get a fantastic, phenomenal left tackle who can come in his first year and consistently for a 15-year career be the best left tackle we've ever had, then great. We should absolutely do that. But outside of that, the man's in his second year. He had a great rookie year. He's learning here in his second year. Jameis Winston had a great rookie year, and he's still learning here in his second year. And Mike Evans had a great rookie year and learned a lot in his second year. And so to pass that kind of judgment on him right now, and even Roberto Aguayo, we look at what's going on with him. You got to ride the roller coaster with some of these guys and give them a chance to actually make it in the league. And that said, I get the other side of this argument. We as Bucs fans have been waiting for such a long time that we can't just sit back and say, well, we'll just give them a couple of years to develop before we expect anything out of them. That's a horrible feeling, because we want to play and we want to play now. We've been waiting too damn long. But at the same time, the reality of these players is what it is, and we've got to give them time to develop. And I think Donovan's doing just fine. I really do. And I don't think he's having as horrible of a year as some people think he is. And I think you can pull any stat you want, and you can make him look like he's awesome, or you can make him look like he's horrible. So that's my thoughts on Donovan. So Ren, thank you.
All right, I'm right there with you.
Yeah, thanks so much for calling in, man. And for sure, we've got probably 15, 20 more minutes left on the show here, at least tonight. So if you want to call back, you got something else you want to talk about, feel free to. Okay.
Appreciate it, Ren.
All right, thanks, Ren. You have a great one. Yeah, guys, that's guys, we've got to ride the roller coaster. You can't just go back and forth and back and forth and back and forth with these guys. You got to ride the roller coaster. What do you guys want to talk about? Hey, guys, open phone lines, 843-633-BUCS, Bucks. That's 843-633-2827. You can call in right now. We'll talk about anything that you want to talk about. While we're waiting on that, actually, I'm going to pause the phone line for just a moment, and I want to get to this email from Mark from over at Bucks and Barbecue, which might be the best Buccaneers Twitter handle out there at all. Let's listen.
Hey, Brent, this is Mark from Illinois. I am Bucks and Barbecue on Twitter. I love your show. I've been listening to you since the beginning. I love how you talk about the Bucks culture and how it needs to change. I did want to comment on that. I do think the Bucks culture is changing, but as a Bucks fan base, including myself, I feel like we've been losing so long that we've gotten used to it. And even though I think that we are growing as a team and we are moving in the right direction, I don't think that we're just going to turn it around in one season. I think it takes time, and I think in a couple of years we could actually be contending for the playoffs and be a more consistent team. And I think consistency is what we've been lacking in Tampa, and hopefully Dirk and Jameis together with Jason Light can change the culture. They are the leadership this team has needed for so long, and I think we are headed in the right direction. Thanks for playing my message. I love your show, and I listen to it every week as I deliver mail. Thanks, man.
Yeah, Mark, thanks so much for calling in and leaving that voicemail earlier this week at thepewtercast@gmail.com. Yeah, the culture, guys. I love what you said. You said we've been losing so long that we've gotten used to it. And I think that is true absolutely for some of these players. And that's a dangerous thing. That's a dangerous proposition when players have gotten used to losing. And I don't know that fans have gotten used to it. You know, because it's you can tell just because of how much it pisses us off. When we don't care anymore, which a lot of fans don't care anymore, so maybe they have gotten used to it. I've not gotten used to it, guys. I am not used to losing. Not now. I'm not used to it. It is still a strange feeling to me every time we lose. But it does take time to change a culture. And I've been saying this since episode 1 of the Pewtercast. You guys can go all the way back where I first started talking about culture. Episode 2 was an entire episode devoted to culture. We've kept talking about it, and Coach Cutter has brought it up, and thank God he brought it up because it makes me sound like I'm not just out there banging a drum that doesn't need to be banged. It is the drum that needs to be banged. Bonged. But I don't know what the past tense of that word is. Banged. Let's call it banged. It does take time. It does not take one season. I would disagree with you just a little bit, Mark, in that I think we can contend for the playoffs now. I really do. Because see, and I think this is why Lovey ultimately got fired. I try to put myself in the position of the Glazers on the phone with Jason Light, and Jason Light is having to give his actual assessment of Lovey. And we all know, you guys should remember how much Jason Light loved, respected, honored, appreciated the man that Lovey Smith is actually. And Jason Light having to sit there and actually just be honest to set those feelings aside when the Glazers ask him at the end of the season and say, okay, what's your assessment on our head coach, who, even though we went 2-4 and now we improved to 6-10, we're still 6-10. And Light having to sit there and say, the problem is we didn't compete. We're not competing. Yeah, we got better, but we're still not competing. And even now in one season, I feel like we are competing more. And there have been some games that we that Arizona game where we just got completely blown out. We didn't compete. That was not a game where there was just a handful of plays that were off and the rest of the time we did pretty good. Okay, that's not the case. At least with the Broncos, the score didn't get ran up as much. We did compete a little bit better, although I feel like that was a worse game for the Bucs than the Arizona one was. The Rams game that we lost, we should have won that game. Somebody said in the chat room earlier that we should be 3-2 right now because we absolutely should have won that Rams game, and I agree with you. We 100% should have won that game. We were able to compete. Okay, and that's what we should be able to expect even in the first year, is just to at least get out there and compete. And in this first year, if we're out there competing, we could be contending for the playoffs. I would say we're looking at the Super Bowl in a few years. We've still got some work to do. It takes time to turn the ship around. It takes time to change the culture. It takes time to flip it all around. All right, guys, open phone lines, 843-633-BUCKS. That's 843-633-BUCS. Please feel free to call in. There are several listeners live at mixler.com/thepewtercast right now. I'd like to say welcome to everybody who's jumped in. Notice that there's a handful of more listeners than we've had even just a few minutes ago. So if you're new to the show, if you're just jumping in, there's another new one who just popped in. Welcome to the show. You can give us a call, 843-633-BUCS. The rules for today: don't be a jerk face. Keep it PG-13 and be concise. You get to pick whatever you want to talk about. Pick up the phone, give us a call. We'll get you on live. We've got a few more minutes here for the show before we close it out. But we will talk about whatever it is that you want to talk about. Let's talk a little bit about the 49ers game. I think I mentioned it earlier that whatever we did against the Eagles last year, let's do that again. You know, Chip Kelly is out there. He's still running a high up-tempo offense. And I'll be honest, I've not watched any 49ers. This is all just from what I've read. There's a book out on how to beat Chip Kelly. There is a book. I cannot picture this guy being in the NFL much longer. He was great at the college level. You know, sometimes college coaches just don't. What they do in college doesn't translate to the NFL, i.e. Greg Schiano. It just doesn't translate to the NFL. And he's back in college where he probably can fly. And I think that's what we're going to find out and what we're going to see is happening with Chip Kelly, as he's going to get busted back to college here probably in the not too far future. That's just my prediction, and that's no hate on him. I just think that's where his system and his method probably works better. I just don't see it working super great in the NFL. And, hey, this is still his first year over with the 49ers, so we got to give him time to switch some things over there as well. I think this game, guys, let me say this about the Niners game. I do not believe that this 49ers game is going to be as easy as some people think it is. This could be a sleeper game, guys. This could be a game where the 49ers actually come out and win. Okay, let's just put it on the table. This is not a give me game. And I think some other Bucs podcasters would tell you that there are no easy games in the NFL. You know, these are all professional guys. These are all guys who go out and they do this for a living. They have tape. They watch you. They game plan for you. This is their job. It's going to be a hard game. And certainly we as the Bucs, we are at a little bit of a disadvantage just going across the country. The Bucs are in practice, now this particular day, and they'll be flying out on Friday, trying to get their bodies adjusted to the time out there. They'll be practicing, I think, at a junior college somewhere out there before they go into the game on Sunday. But, I do think that we have momentum on our side. I think that we have the players that we will get back, assuming we get all these guys back, which it looks like we are, with the exception of maybe Doug Martin. Although we have now lost Vincent Jackson, and that's going to hurt us. Doug Martin's not coming back as quickly as he said he would, or as we expected him, I should say. But I still think we can win. I am going to give this game to the Buccaneers against the 49ers. So that's my thought. I think we win. Just basically repeat what we did last year. So, all right, guys, open phone lines, 843-633-BUCS. That's 843-633-2827. We'll talk about whatever you guys want to talk about. You pick the topic. We'll talk about it. We'll get in there. So, yeah. Oh, wow, look at that. Guys, we have already been broadcasting for over an hour. How about that? I just really planned on going an hour, so it feels like we're in here. We'll keep the phone lines open here for just a few more minutes as we kind of start to close out the show. Roberto Aguayo was one person I had noted on here to talk about just a little bit. I'm not changing my tune on Roberto Aguayo, guys, at all. Roberto Aguayo, ride the roller coaster. That's all I'm going to say about him. Ride the roller coaster. And he's going to get better. He has to. Just by sheer fact of getting out and doing it, he will get better. Is it possible he could wash out? Yeah, it absolutely is. Is it possible that he could never get better? Yeah, that's possible, but I think he's going to get better. He's going to figure this out. Things are happening for him in a different way. And he has one job. in the middle of all that, he has one job, which means he should be able to learn it and adjust that much quicker. So, Roberto Aguayo, ride the roller coaster, guys. That's all I can say. Hashtag I'm with 19. Yeah. So, all right, guys. Well, hey, listen, I'm going to keep the phone lines open while I close out the show. So if you want to cut me off, feel free, because I'll stay on this line if you guys keep calling in. I see a bunch of you guys in the chat room over there still talking. So, guys, as far as the show here today, I want to thank you guys for participating in the show. For those of you that sent in emails, Aaron and Mark, thank you guys so much for taking the time to pre-record your voice and send that in. To those of you who called into the show, thank you so much. It was fun. It was fun to get to talk to Bucks fans. I was glad to have you guys in here. For all those of you who are listening live, thanks so much for joining us in at Mixler. This is, for right now, this is probably the only live show we're going to do this year. That might change. I don't want to say it's probably the only one. I fully intend that next week we go back to our regular way of doing the show, which is not a live show. We pre-record it and then we mix it up later. But man, this was a lot of fun. I like getting to talk to you guys. You guys have been fantastic. You brought up a lot of great stuff to talk about here on the bye week, and I really just I appreciate that. Guys, if you want to tweet at me, if you want to get with me, you can do that at Twitter, on Twitter at the Pewtercast, or you can find me on Facebook. That's facebook.com/the Pewtercast. There's that one. Or you can shoot me an email. We'll always take emails. I did get an email. Why don't we read one of those? It's thepewtercast@gmail.com. This one came in about a week or so ago. This is from... I don't know what all these letters mean. L.S. Sergeant for the U.S. Air Force, Spets. First of all, thank you, Jordan Spets, for your service to our country. Really, really appreciate that. You left me your cell phone number, which is awesome. He says, Brent, first and foremost, love the show. All the podcasts are great, but my favorites have to be the Instacasts. Those would be the instant casts that we have. The stats and BS aside, it's just the reality and true emotion of it all that he's talking about the instant cast here. Definitely enjoyable and so good to have you on there. As far as Bucks talk, I guess a couple of my biggest issues with this team is I'm sick of being consistently bad at the same things year in and year out. Penalties are killing us again. Maybe the stats don't show it, but it seems like every time a drive is going well, we screw ourselves with a few dumb penalties and the drive dies. That was true even in this Carolina game. Absolutely. Or how about our secondary? The safeties are not promising, and in my opinion, we need to cut ties with Altron Werner. Not only did the Bucks overpay that man, but he got torched a lot. Kenny Britt is not an elite receiver. I think you meant Kenny Bell. Is not an elite receiver, and he's talking Kenny Brent. And Werner got dusted by him. Yeah, talking about a guy from another team. I would rather give Banks or Robinson a few reps and see what they can do. Love Hargraves, and Grimes is coming along. Also, what are your thoughts on Cecil Shorts? I understand he's been hurt for a few games, but are we ever going to get to see him get involved in the offense? Let me answer that. He says, Guy can play and be a huge help to our offense, yet it seems as if we signed the guy solely to watch our kickoffs get kicked over his head and out of the end zone. I would say this. I think Cecil Shorts was signed exactly to do that, to watch kickoffs get kicked over his head, for the handful that won't get kicked over his head, and to have him return them. Because Dante Dye was hurt. Now Dante Dye is back. As of this show, Dante Dye is back, and I think he's going to be back in a big way. So I'm super excited to see Dante Dye back. Now with Vincent Jackson going down, Cecil Shorts, he is a wide receiver, as is Dante Dye. So we might be able to see them getting some more reps. But you asked me my thoughts on Cecil Shorts. The thing is I just don't know enough about him. I'd never heard of him, honestly, until he was signed here, and we've just not seen enough out of him for me to really form an opinion, other than I think we really hired him just to return kickoffs. That's really why we brought him in, and he kind of like Russell Shepard. Russell Shepard's a special teams guy, but he is technically a wide receiver, so he can come in on those plays. He just probably won't a whole lot. Sergeant Spets goes on to say he's excited about Jeremy Butler, that they brought up to the 53. I think he can be a solid addition right away. I think he might have already been cut since this email was sent. Your culture podcast hit it right on the head. We have the talent. They just need to have the mentality of eat or be eaten. Yes, they do. And not take plays off. we consistently have to take drives. We consistently take drives or plays off, and it's the most annoying thing in the world to watch it. We are banged up right now, but I'm confident going forward, just hoping to get these pains out of the way early and get on track here starting on Monday. That would be in the Monday night game we just played last week. I appreciate your time. Look forward to the future podcast. Go Bucks. Once again, thank you so much, Sergeant Spetz, for your, it says S Sergeant. Does that mean Staff Sergeant? Is that what that, anybody in the chat room who can confirm that for me? S Sergeant when you sign your name? Staff Sergeant Spetz, I assume that's what that is. I might be wrong. I apologize if it's not. But again, thank you for your service and thank you for your email. Yeah, those are all some great thoughts. We're banged up right now, but we're confident going forward. You know what I loved about Monday is banged. It means super. Rendax says it means super. So super sergeant. I've never heard of that before, but yeah. You know, we were banged up going into the Monday night game. And you've got to be so daggum proud of how everybody else stepped up around them. Nobody was flashy. Yeah, I mean, Jacquizz Rodgers, you know, he's shown a lot, but he only got 100 yards on 30 touches. That just seems so low to me. And when you look at that, I mean, that's 3.3 yards per touch. You know, you get that many yards per touch, you're almost never seeing fourth down. So there you go. But I would have liked to have seen a little bit more. But that what I'm saying is that all of our backups who came in, they stepped up. I mean, it was like watching the movie The Replacements, and they went out and they won. So that was certainly fun to see. Anyway, if you'd like to send an email, we definitely read them all on air if they're good, especially. And yeah, we'll get that in there. So send us an email to thepewtercast@gmail.com, Twitter @thepewtercast, Facebook.com/thepewtercast. Those are ways to get a hold of us. Anyone left out there, I'll give it one final call. I see a few people here in the chat room. Anyone want to call in and have your opinion heard here on the Pewtercast as we close out the show? The number is 843-633-BUCKS. That's 843-633-2827. They're saying in the chat room right now, Bucks need to learn how to win. It's that simple. You're right about the culture, but plays like Brent Grimes' interception in the end zone and Keem Spence stop on 3rd and 2 wouldn't have happened last year. They are learning. Absolutely, they are learning. Those are big plays that came up and had big impacts in what could happen here with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So yeah, guys. Well, guys, I think that's going to get us here for the end of the show. As we close this thing out, guys, this has been fun. I think we should do another one of these shows. Maybe not. Ideally, I think in my head we would just do this on bye weeks, so I wouldn't do this for like another year and change. But I don't know. We might do this again in the future. I'd like to get into talk to you guys. Once again, my thanks to everyone who has called into the show and made this. I'm going to call this one a success. We've never done this before. It's a first good go. We had a little bit of technical difficulties at the beginning, but hey, not a big deal. If you guys are listening to this on the podcast, please be sure to go to iTunes, leave us a rating and a review. That's how other people find us. Guys, we'll see you for the Instant Cast this Sunday after the 49ers game. Until then, go Bucks.